For years, the mere mention of Leroy Jethro Gibbs has been enough to ignite excitement across the NCIS fandom. Even after his emotional departure from the team, viewers never truly stopped believing that the legendary agent would one day walk back through the doors of the Navy Yard, coffee in hand and a rule ready for every situation. But now, the reality fans have quietly feared appears to have arrived. Gibbs's return to NCIS is officially dead for now. The key words, of course, are for now. Because if television history has taught audiences anything, it is that no beloved character ever stays gone forever. Yet, for the moment, the path back to the flagship series seems more distant than it has at any point since Gibbs left Washington behind, and that changes everything. The end of an era still hurts. When Gibbs departed NCIS, it wasn't simply another cast exit, it was the closing chapter of a television era. For nearly 2 decades, Gibbs served as the emotional center of the franchise. He wasn't the loudest person in the room. He wasn't the funniest. He rarely delivered long speeches. But whenever Gibbs appeared on screen, the entire story shifted around him. His leadership style was unique. A look from Gibbs could communicate more than pages of dialogue. His famous rules became life lessons for both agents and viewers. Even his silences carried weight. So when he chose to remain in Alaska and step away from his old life, fans understood the reasoning. The decision felt earned. After years of loss, sacrifice, and relentless work, Gibbs finally found peace. The problem is that viewers weren't ready to let go. Every season since his departure has been filled with speculation. A brief cameo, a surprise phone call, a one-episode return, something, anything. Yet season after season, those hopes have remained exactly that, hopes. NCIS has learned to move forward. One reason a comeback seems increasingly unlikely is surprisingly simple. NCIS no longer needs it. That may sound harsh, especially considering Gibbs's importance to the franchise, but it reflects how successfully the series has evolved. The current team has developed its own identity. Agents who once stood in Gibbs's shadow now carry major storylines themselves. The leadership structure has changed. New relationships have formed, different personalities have emerged as fan favorites. Most importantly, the show has proven it can survive without constantly looking backward. Many long-running series struggle after losing a central character. Some spend years attempting to recreate what worked before. Others become trapped in nostalgia. NCIS avoided that trap. Instead of pretending Gibbs never existed, the writers acknowledged his legacy while allowing the series to continue growing. As a result, bringing him back now would require more than a simple guest appearance. It would fundamentally alter the balance the show has spent years building. The risk of a return. Ironically, the thing fans want most could also be the thing that creates the biggest problem. A Gibbs comeback sounds exciting on paper, but what happens after the initial excitement fades? If Gibbs returns permanently, the spotlight immediately shifts back to him. Newer characters risk becoming secondary players. Storylines that have taken years to develop could suddenly feel less important. Television history is filled with examples of legacy characters returning only to overshadow everything around them. NCIS has worked hard to establish its future. Reintroducing Gibbs as a full-time presence could unintentionally pull the franchise backward instead of forward. That doesn't mean fans wouldn't love seeing him again. It simply means that making such a return work would be far more complicated than many viewers realize. The emotional weight matters. Another factor is the ending itself. Gibbs didn't leave because he was forced out. He wasn't killed off. He didn't disappear. He made a conscious choice. That distinction matters. His final chapter carried emotional significance precisely because it represented something rare in television: peace. For most of his life, Gibbs operated under the weight of grief, responsibility, and duty. His career became his identity. Then, unexpectedly, he found a different path. By remaining in Alaska, he chose himself for perhaps the first time. Reversing that decision too quickly would risk undermining the emotional power of his departure. Sometimes a character's ending remains meaningful because it stays an ending. The door isn't completely closed. Despite all the evidence suggesting a return isn't imminent, there is one reason fans shouldn't lose hope entirely. NCIS has never completely shut the door. The series continues to reference Gibbs. Characters still speak about him with respect. His influence remains visible throughout the team. More importantly, television franchises rarely abandon iconic figures forever. A special episode, a milestone season, a major crossover event, a franchise anniversary. Any of these situations could create the perfect opportunity for a brief return. The difference is that such an appearance would likely serve as a celebration rather than a permanent comeback, and perhaps that's exactly what Gibbs deserves. The franchise has changed. The NCIS universe today looks dramatically different from the one Gibbs once led. Multiple spin-offs have expanded the franchise. New generations of agents have entered the spotlight. Fresh stories are being told in ways that weren't possible years ago. That evolution is healthy. Every successful television franchise eventually reaches a crossroads where it must decide whether to rely on its past or invest in its future. NCIS appears to have made its choice. The future matters. That doesn't erase Gibbs's importance. If anything, it highlights it. His legacy became strong enough to support the franchise long after he stepped away. Very few television characters can claim that achievement. For now, Alaska wins. If Gibbs could speak directly to fans today, he might offer a simple reminder. Some endings aren't tragedies. Some endings are victories. After decades of service, countless investigations, and more personal loss than anyone should endure, Gibbs earned his peace. For now, that peace remains in Alaska rather than Washington. And while fans may continue dreaming about the day he returns, the reality is becoming increasingly clear. The comeback everyone expected isn't happening anytime soon, not next week, not next month, perhaps not even next season. Gibbs's return to NCIS is officially dead for now. Yet, in a franchise built on surprises, dead and gone forever are two very different things. The legend of Leroy Jethro Gibbs still looms over every hallway, every investigation, and every agent who follows in his footsteps. His story may not currently include a return ticket to the Navy Yard, but his presence has never truly disappeared. And that's why fans will keep watching the horizon. Because as long as Gibbs exists somewhere in the NCIS universe, there will always be a chance, however small, that one day the most famous special agent in franchise history walks through that door again.